Loving kindness. You may think that it is only a personal feeling that you are developing within your meditation practice or through your meditation practice, but actually loving kindness is something much more universal. It is actually one of the deepest aspects of reality. It is one of those aspects and qualities that consciousness has that is beyond anything that is really relatively pursued by you in your life. Like all the other goals, all the other feelings, they are different from pure love, from unconditional love that is accepting of everything. And I actually want to talk about why meditation is, or why the aspect of developing universal unconditional love through meditation is one of its greatest benefits that you actually really only develop through a committed long-term meditation practice. Only when you do this for a prolonged period of time, and we are talking here thousands of hours cumulative over like many years, probably, when you have when you meditate for an hour a day, that will take you probably a few years. But what it does to your mind, and understand your mind here as this filter through which you are perceiving reality. And not only the filter, but the whole mechanism by which you create your experience. So it's, on the one hand, your mind is filtering the reality that is out there, and it at the same time then presents it to you as your as what you see, as what you hear, and as what you feel, see, smell, and all of these sensory modalities that your mind creates in order to give you some information about whatever it is that you are perceiving. And now, when you meditate and you have this practice that is focused on this aspect of loving everything, of training your mind to love everything unconditionally, that is, in a sense, widening your lens. Whereas before, your filter was very rigidly observing reality and had only a tiny portion of it that it would label beneficial, good, and would attach positive feelings to, positive emotions. But with meditation, you widen that lens, and more of what you perceive is perceived through this feeling of love, through this lens of acceptance. And really, that is the beautiful aspect of a long-term meditation practice. And when you notice that it's happening to you, that this is something that you see changes over time in your mental space, so to speak, it's a counterforce to everything else that's going on. Like every other desire that you have somehow seems of a much lower quality. That will show itself in your life in the sense that more and more things seem to be less beneficial for you or less attractive. You won't perceive any low consciousness activities anymore. And so this positive effect that unconditional love and loving kindness meditation has on your life is that you are naturally engaged in more high quality activities. You are more driven, and you are not only more driven, but you are able to discern what is really a beneficial activity and what is not. And you can only do that if you widen your lens and see, first of all, everything that arises in this field that is actually consciousness, which has this deep underlying quality of love, kindness, and acceptance. Don't misunderstand this and say, this is a bad teaching because it denies suffering. This is not at all the case. Your loving kindness will feel the suffering that you feel by observing the suffering of your own being and of others in your experience. There is this underlying, what underlies all of experience is this loving kindness, is unconditional love. But in that field, and so this is a fundamental quality of consciousness, it doesn't mean that in that field suffering cannot arise. But you will see that this is happening on a lower level, so to speak. It's kind of like it's not interfering with unconditional love. It's still happening, and while you are completely wrapped up in your ego and in your separateness, in your individualism, suffering feels very real. It is like the only thing at times that you can think about. And that's only because you haven't developed your consciousness yet to that higher level where you are transcending personal, individual suffering. And that, in my experience, can only really be done in a sustainable, long-term way through a solid meditation practice. And while you may struggle in the beginning or even for longer periods with this establishment of a practice of whatever that looks like for you, of developing your consciousness, it is worth it. It is worth investing effort into building that positive habit, and trust that you are not yet seeing the results that it will give you. You have to trust, in a certain sense, to a certain degree, that this will just be yielding results for you at one point, even though you may just right now feel it's adding more suffering. But in my experiences, it very, very quickly subsides, and your meditation practice actually becomes a very joyful part of your daily routine and something you look forward to. So my only tip for you, if you are a beginner in meditation or you have tried meditation in the past and you have kind of not done the practice for a prolonged period of time, is to just re-establish it and accept that it might suck for a while, but then it will surely, and trust that it will surely develop into something beautiful in your life and increase your capacity to unconditionally love everything. And that's very, very beautiful, because it's not something you actively have to do. It's something that just underlies all of your relative experience, so to speak. It's some flavor that's infused into your experience. And at this point, it is also important to recognize that there is not only one way to do this, to be aware of this very substantial quality of existence that is love. You cannot only do it by meditation. There's also the tool of psychedelics, and it is a much more direct way that has also a lot more difficulties involved in it. It's much more complex to steer the process, and you can it has its own challenges, let's say. So while it has its benefits, that it might speed up your progress and give you amazing insights into your own self, into your true being, into the nature of consciousness especially, it will also bring a lot of challenges with it. So I recommend, if you take that path, be careful, get someone who's experienced in the practice of using psychedelics to work on your consciousness and explore it, and get guidance through that, help, and really do a lot of studying, do a lot of reading. It doesn't help to stop with the advice of set and setting and dose. It really goes much more beyond that, and is something you have to study very deeply, and isn't something you can trust to explore all on your own. It isn't something, it's like a unofficial scientific field, let's say. It's so complex, it's so vast, it's so deep. You really have to get all the knowledge that you can if you embark on that journey. Imagine or compare it to building a rocket ship, and you want to fly in outer space. You wouldn't do that like tomorrow with just with just one book that you read, or with just some technology that you heard can bring you to space. No, that's a big project that involves many, many different disciplines, and if you wanted to do that, you have to get help, and you have to do it with others. Like in psychedelics, of course, it's always your own subjective experience, but what I mean is it's a very, very deep, complex topic. It has many difficulties, just like flying into outer space. You have to ground your own research, your own practice into, or build it on top of what all of the other people have already experienced and taken out of those experiences, and like really studied and put into words, put into written books, put into videos, and shared is available to you. Always start low, I would recommend. The long-term effects, the long-term benefits that you get out of this will come over time anyways, and not with one trip. Do your meditation for an hour, for example, and then try a small dose of a psychedelic and just see how that impacts you, and then you can judge how you want to go from there. If you want to take the same dose again, if you felt nothing, if you maybe increase it by 50% or 100%, if it was a really small dose. So really, there's no reason you cannot go slow. In my experience, it prevents you from having a really bad trip that takes you years to like contemplate and get over, because then it might scare you so much you will maybe never touch this toolbox of psychedelics ever again. So yeah, that's just the second technology, so to speak, that you have. Meditation and meditation practice, I think, is always beneficial, whether you take the route of using psychedelics to like maybe speed up your progress. Loving kindness is the underlying quality of existence that you somehow polish, or you polish your filters so much that you can actually see that quality that underlies all of this like murky water, so to speak, that is your current experience, that is your current life. And that's really what I wanted to share here. This is a fundamental aspect, or the fundamental effect of meditation. It's really what you get out of it after not one session, not a year probably, but after you have had a solid meditation practice for years, you will look back and see like how deeply your perception has changed, and how you have really transcended most of the relative experiences that are still your life, and it does not solve those. You may still have relative issues that you have to work on with other techniques, but it gives you this larger perspective, and that's really what's so beautiful about it, and makes it so essential to any spiritual path.